Alright guys, Paul back here again for another video, and in this one I'm really excited. A really rare belt I've not had the chance to look at in some time. In this video we're going to be taking a detailed look at a 2001 original WWF logo smoking skull replica belt. Right, so like I mentioned, this is an original 2001. This was in the original batch release of replica belts by WWF. So this included things like the heavyweight Big Eagle, the oval IC, the European, the tags, the light heavyweight, the women's. I think that was it. All of these belts are now 20 years old and they're becoming so rare and so difficult to come by, especially in good condition. And I'm thrilled to say this is one of the best conditioned smoking skull replica belts I've ever had the pleasure to actually work on and review in this case. So let's get into that. Alright, before we get too far into this review, I just want to give a special shout out to my gold tier Patreons, including today Stephen Hughes and Scott Welsh. If you are interested in joining the PMB Patreon, we post a lot of things over there. It's starting to grow now. I'm posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff of how I kind of craft replica belts, and soon I'm going to be showing how I make belts entirely. That will eventually end up on YouTube, but it's going to Patreon much earlier. So if you're interested in joining up, please check out the link in the description box below. I would genuinely appreciate it. Okay, so we have the belt out on the table as you can see here, and I should mention this is an adult sized replica belt. Again, 2001, so it does have those 2mm thick plates, and it is of course on simulated leather. So simulated leather strap, just from the start we'll give an example there. So the flexibility of these older straps, it's not great as you probably come to expect. They do have the sewn on snap boxes, so the flexibility in these simulated straps is pretty bad. And of course this does have the white, the grey snakeskin backing, and what is really rare, we'll go into it later on, this still has the sticker patch on the back. Haven't seen that in over 10 years. Right, we'll talk about the belt. So I mentioned the strap. It is a very basic strap, as you'll see. It is just that really plastic simulated leather that all of these WWF belts originally came with, and like I said, it does have the sewn on snap box here around the 2x8 snap set. So there's no imitation tooling, there's no designs on the strap like there is on a lot more of the modern replica belts. We simply have a grey stitch going around the border of the strap from one end to the other, and of course a similar snap box here sewn on, and the 2x5 snap ratio here. So the simulated leather strap is really basic. It doesn't have any tooling designs. Having said that, the leather design on the smoking skull and most of the Attitude Era belts was actually fairly basic at the time. This area wouldn't have too much detail in it, and there was just a little bit of camouflage tooling going around the borders traditionally. For what it is, it's a decent enough strap. 20 years old now, so there's not really very high expectations for it, to be quite frank. And let's just get onto the plates straight away. So as I mentioned earlier, these are the 2mm thick stamped plates, 2001, and the condition of these is so good. There are some surface scratches, obviously. I think that's to be expected with any belt that's even 10 years old, let alone 20 years old. But this thing looks like it's been kept in a cabinet. It looks like it's been kept secure and hardly handled at all. It has a few creases in the simulated leather strap, but the plates themselves are probably the best smoking skull plates I've seen in well over a decade. So of course this is a 5-plater, so the outer side plates are very simple WWF Attitude plates. I should say these original WWF replicas, I personally prefer them a lot more to the smoking skull that is currently sold on WWE Shop and Euroshop. The remake of this with the thicker casted plates, for some reason they got the art of, like, I say very wrong, but it's not very wrong, it's just off, and it's off-putting at times, if that makes sense, because if you see all these kind of shattered areas, the kind of lines, the random lines, I think they're supposed to be like shattered glass, on the WWE re-release, all these lines, for some reason, those lines themselves are painted in black rather than either side of the line being painted in black like the original belt was. It's not a huge difference, it just for accuracy's sake. So it's strange that they changed that. I'm not sure why. Personally, I think this looks a lot better, the WWF version, but that's just me. Moving on to the inner side plate, we of course have the skull. We've got two WWF logos and the snake around the skull there. It's a very interesting shape. For those that don't realize, the same shape of center plate and kind of barbed wire design going around the border here for the center plate was used on the Attitude women's belt. You know, the little women's belt. It has the same plate outline and shape. There's quite a few elements that you'll notice that are reused on certain belts. Like the side plate shape is reused again on the Brahma Bull design. These side plates on the skull. So it's quite interesting how Jamar, the original maker, these kind of just swapped around designs, or his designer did that, reusing stuff. I mean, you see that on classic belts all the time, to be fair, with wrestlers, eagles, even little floral patterns being reused over and over. Side plates on the right hand side there are just identical to the left. So we got the skull, the two WWF logos, and the Attitude outer side plate. But the main focus of this belt is of course the center plate, and like I mentioned, this thing is honestly in really good condition. It's got a couple of scratches round about here on the belt, but honestly this thing, compared to the standard that I tend to see on WWF belts these days, like all the belts behind me on the shelf there, the three WWF belts up the top, they are pretty bad condition when compared to this thing. This thing is near enough mint. That might be a stretch, but it's honestly really good condition. So of course you'll see the world text at the top of the plate and heavyweight champion. I should say I love the Smoking Skull belt. I think personally, I think it's my favorite gimmick belt, and I know that will be the case for a lot of people. I mean, the Smoking Skull is iconic, really. And I must say the WWF logo on this belt, I love that it's the really kind of grungy, I don't know if that's the best word, it's the really kind of hacked away looking WWF logo. It's not clean, it's not the proper like company logo that was then later used on other belts. I think, especially when you look at the WWE version of this that's sold on shop.com right now, the proper logo, the proper scratch logo being etched into this belt, it looks a little bit off to me in my opinion. I think the fact that this belt is kind of looks like it's thrown together, the text on it, the fonts used are all over the place. I think the fact that it has that logo that looks like it's just been really crudely carved into the skull there, I think it's fantastic. And personally, those WWE versions always look a little bit too clean to me. And of course we got the two rattlesnakes on the either side of the center plate. So I mean, if you look at the design, it's not exactly like the most detailed design. It's not the most like fancy. It's literally just kind of like Steve Austin. He likes skulls, he likes snakes, throw those on, good enough. But honestly, it works. A banner, a skull, two rattlesnakes, and that's pretty much it on a fairly generic shape. It's a really nice looking belt, and genuinely I'm thrilled to have this. I'm re-leathering this, I should mention, so we're going to put it on a brand new real leather strap with a snake print backing, and it will look really good. We'll post a video when that is complete, but genuinely I think this belt's awesome. It does have a pretty decent curve as well. The plate is fairly wide. It's not the tallest belt, but yeah, really nice looking replica. I'm very impressed with the condition this has been kept in, and we'll just take a look at the rear of the belt. Got to protect this belt, especially in such condition as this, so we'll put a little bit of foam over the plates to just protect those. And like I mentioned earlier on in the video, these WWF belts, finding them in this good enough condition is difficult at best, but especially with the Smoking Skull, finding one that still has the sticker patch on the back, that's near enough impossible. I've re-leathered a few Smoking Skulls in the past few years, and not a single one has been sent with this patch on it, because on most replica belts the patch is just a simulated piece of leather that's stitched on in place. On belts that have snake print backing, similarly that ECW belt has the orange snakeskin backing, on those replica belts the property of patch, the manufacturer's patch, was a sticker that was simply stuck onto the back similar to this, and as you can imagine the stickers peel off very easily. So finding one of these that still has the sticker intact, you can see the glue on it is yellowed up a fair bit, so you can kind of see it's discolored the snake behind it, the snake print behind it, but you can still pretty much read it. There are parts of the sticker that have popped up and the text on it is coming away now, but you can still read officially licensed WWF product, Figures Inc. Toy Company. There are details, and at the bottom here, 2001 World Wrestling Federation Entertainment Inc. WWF.com. Still got the WWF sticker, still can be seen there. Really, I'm so impressed. Right, I think that's pretty much all there was to talk about this belt. Personally, I have to say, the Smoking Skull is one of my favourite belt designs. Like I mentioned earlier on in the video, I think this is probably my favourite gimmick belt design. It's that iconic a design, I can't really look past it. If you're asking my opinion on this belt, personally, I think this WWF version of this replica is the best official copy of the belt available. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the remake that's on WWE Shop. Not just the art changes, the WWE logo doesn't belong on a smoking skull. Of all belts that the WWF logo, personally in my opinion, the scratch logo at least, belongs on, is the smoking skull. No other belt kind of, I just don't think it works with any other logo personally. So in my opinion, if you want the one on Euroshop or WWE Shop, it's a good enough belt. It's a decent copy. It's not their best replica. It's nowhere near the best replica on WWE Shop. It's certainly, in my opinion, in the bottom tier of replicas, the remake that they're selling now. And personally, given the choice, obviously I would go for this version. But if you can get one of these, for one, but if you can get one of these and it's not going to be a ridiculous price, which most of these, to be honest, are nowadays, yeah, get this one. It's a far better replica, even with those 2mm thick plates. I think just the design on these plates looks better, and yeah, that's just my opinion. Personally, I'm a stickler for the logos, but I'm not always that anal about it. But in this case, I think the Smoking Skull remake is a pretty poor one, and I much prefer the original. But that being said, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, more belt videos coming soon, reviews. Let me know what you're interested in the comment section down below. That being said, thank you. Cheers.
Yo, monkeys, it's me, DDP. And if you want to get one of the greatest belts made for you, go to Paulmartinbelts. That's right, sucker.